Welcome to the Climate Gap Quick Cuts, a podcast for busy people building climate solutions. We spotlight founders, builders, operators, and investors doing the hard work behind real progress. I'm Ben, co-founder of Element 6. We connect climate tech companies with the people who make scale possible. Let's get into it. So AI won't fix your building if your data is scattered. Work orders in one tool, cleaning in another, room booking in a third, BMS alarms in a fourth. AI can't infer what it can't see. Today we get practical. What must live in your platform layer? How to model context across assets, people, and spaces. And the first integrations that actually move a CFO's needle in 90 days. My guest is Brett Fisher, who leads the workplace platform stack at ServiceNow. Let's get into it. Brett, delighted to have you on the show. Could you kick us off with an intro to you and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, Ben. My name is Brett Fisher. I'm a senior director at ServiceNow and look after the IWMS and facility management solutions. Excited to be with you today.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for joining. I'm looking forward to our discussion. So, Brett, you've said the platform that has the data will win. In practical terms, what must live in the platform layer and what can safely stay as a point tool so AI can more than just retrieve facts?
Yeah, great question, Ben. So I sort of have this vision, and we have this vision that there's sort of all of these different systems out there that have this rich contextual data about how the enterprise is working, not just in corporate real estate, but just in the broader enterprise. And I think that what AI is, as you all know, is really good at doing today is being able to pull in external data, right? So I can look at the internet, I can search Google, and it puts all of that at your fingertips. Does a great job summarizing, building slides, whatever you want it to do. Right? It's crazy. The part that is interesting, right, in AI for the enterprise is when that sort of AI can pull the data from the internal company intranet. And so, my perspective is that the company that the platform that has that data all in one place and can leverage that data is the one that's going to win in the world of AI. And so when we think about corporate real estate, for example, there's a host of different platforms out there and a ton of point solutions. There's sensors observing data. There's BMS systems with all sorts of different observing data points. There's your CAFM system, your IWMS system. Maybe you have some digital twin somewhere. So there's all of these hosts of types of systems, and maybe they integrate in they bring in certain data fields and certain pieces of context into a platform, but really having a platform strategy and driving all of that from the same solution is I think going to help to move the needle forward in terms of quickly being able to generate insights from the AI platform. And so the way we're thinking about ServiceNow, for example, is we have one data model across the entire enterprise, right? So whether it's IT or HR or now corporate real estate, it's all in the same spot. And so that's, like I said, that's a little bit of what we think is going to be so powerful. Once you unleash the large language models on all of the data that exists in the enterprise.
Okay, makes sense. I'm trying to compute it in my tiny brain. So many teams integrate by piping raw fields from apps into a warehouse. What's your minimum viable context model? Assets, spaces, people, schedules, sensor events that lets AI infer meaning across maintenance, cleaning, and reservations?
Yeah, so three very different use cases, right? Reservations, cleaning, and maintenance. And the MVP is probably a little bit different for each of them. I tend to think that, obviously it starts with location data. We have some really interesting use cases from an AI perspective around an agentic AI perspective around reservations. So being able to automate the rescheduling of meetings, and sort of we're seeing like a 60% reduction in the amount of time it takes meeting room coordinators to coordinate reservations. Yeah, I know, it's huge. If there maybe, let's say a conference room becomes disabled, we're actually having an AI agent, shuffle the catering, reschedule all the other reservations in the room for the day, re-register the visitors, and all those sort of other types of very manual activities. Having data around who booked the room, but then also, if you're going to reschedule catering, you got to have the catering data, right? You got to be able to interact the solution, right? If you are going to manage cleaning, you got to know who's going to do the cleaning, right? So there's a host of different data points that are necessary around things like reservations. Then when you start to think about things like maintenance and cleaning, it becomes more just like it becomes more than just automating somebody's individual daily task, and it becomes a more around how do you reduce the total cost of the ownership of the program? How do you reduce the frequency of maintenance, and cleaning is a really good example where this is not even AI, some basic sensors, right, to do sort of restroom cleaning, and then create an algorithm around sort of predicting the frequency in which restrooms need to be cleaned. So there's some very interesting use cases around that. But maintenance data is what's interesting on maintenance data is there's a whole world of things that you can start to bring in, right? So you can bring in the weather for the day, the weather forecast, right? It turns out that they actually have probably a pretty big impact on how much energy you're going to use on a particular day, for example. So what I like about the story in the maintenance world is it's not just the internal data that sits in the enterprise, but also the data that sits outside of the enterprise, right? External data like the weather report.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. If you could standardize one data contract for every vendor plugging into Workplace Ops, what would it declare about event formats, IDs, timestamps, so the AI layer stays reliable and auditable?
Yeah, good question. We launched a product called Workplace Connectors about a year and a half ago, with precisely this question in mind of how do I standardize the input, coming into the platform. And what we found was that customers were sort of, if you allow customers to build bespoke integrations every time, let's say sensor data needs to come in, you're going to end up with 15 different integrations with 15 different outputs. And so what we ended up doing was across some of the data types that are commonly integrated with our platform, we built a set of agnostic connectors that sort of pipes the data in based on a sort of a predefined format. So for example, if you're bringing in data from occupancy sensors, the data has to be in a certain format for occupancy sensors. If you're going to send data out to digital signage, for example, that you want to put outside of conference room walls, that has to come in or go out in a very specific format, and we provide the sort of, again, the API spoke to be able to do that. So I don't necessarily know if we need to sort of get into a debate about what the timestamp needs to look like, but the point is that the data format needs to be standardized based on the platform, and that's how a little bit about how we're thinking about it, because we think that again. There's so much. What's the word? AI tends to produce inaccurate results often, and you certainly need to make sure that the data that's going into it is producing a completely accurate set of results. I'll give you an example. At our annual conference this past year at Knowledge, it's 25,000 people come to this event in Las Vegas, and we were at the meeting center from our workplace service delivery application. So we had, I think it was like 100 and some meeting rooms, and we had sensors in all the ceilings of all the different rooms, and it showed real-time availability status. It's kind of one of the dynamics of this event is it's like near, the conference rooms are nearly 100% booked. So understanding who was squatting, who was late to meetings, who wasn't showing up, releasing rooms, et cetera, was one of the things that we did with the capability of the application. And so we, of course, were piping in data from sensors, digital signage, and a host of other different types of solutions. And then we had an AI layer on top of it that was generating insights. Again, it's kind of early for the AI insights, but it was already a little sassy in terms of how it was declaring observations. It said, there's 15 people in a room, and it holds 10 people, and maybe we need to go and open the door or something like that. So, I do think it's. Go ahead.
I was just going to say. So, how do you communicate to somebody that is squatting? Is there a sort of automated speaker, or does a red light flash in the office to say, you haven't booked this room?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think squatting is a problem only when somebody else needs to get into the room, right?
Yeah.
So, um,
Right.
yeah,
So they'll deal with that issue
yeah,
themselves
I kind of think that's
directly.
it's almost a personal problem, right? Although it can be awkward sometimes. So, when we were at our conference, right, we had conference room admins that had that data all at their fingertips, and so they would go out and kind of start to bump people from the rooms if they detected that they were being used without a reservation.
Yeah. It's probably one of the banes of people's lives in the workplace. I booked this room. No, you didn't. So I'm glad that there's that's moving at pace. All right. So we know that platforms die when ownership is fuzzy. Who do you think should own the ops platform day to day, IT, FM, or workplace? And what rituals keep vendors from recreating silos on your platform?
Yeah, and of course I'm biased, right? Because this is precisely the opportunity with ServiceNow. So if you think of ServiceNow as the enterprise service management product, right? So whether you need a new laptop to change your benefits with HR to book a desk, we're the sort of the one-stop shop from the employee engagement layer. And so if you seek to have sort of that notion of a centralized employee experience, standardized workflows across the platform, then it does make sense to have some sort of IT ownership of the platform. But the business lines, right, need to be able to drive the requirements, right, and the use cases, and need to be getting value out of that in sort of a customer centric mindset, right, and so. I think that where we see the most success is when it's a collaboration initiative between the business and IT, and the business, of course, being FM or workplace. But that's where we see, I think, the most success. I think that I've been in the space for a while, and I've seen a number of shadow IT shops that real estate has started over the years. And I know that can always sort of get people into hot water for a myriad of reasons, whether it's security or just sort of process, cost, et cetera. So there's a lot of synergies to having a platform that supports multiple business lines. And then, of course, when you do that, though, you've got to have a governance process wrapped around it.
Thinking about sequences that can prove value fast. If an enterprise is starting today, what's the first two integrations you'd do? Like what KPI moves in 90 days and what evidence gets a CFO to fund the next wave?
Yeah, well, I mean, in these types of systems, right, there's things like location data, right, that aren't sexy but have to come in. So you kind of have to start there. What would I do to deliver value fast? I think that if you've been around the workplace space for a while, and then more recently the past couple of years, I think the trend right now is it's all about employee experience, right, and how employees experience the workplace. So we are seeing a ton of growth around our experience capabilities. Whether it's our just even simple reservations, but then reservations integrated with things like sensors, I think are really, really interesting. One of the products I'm super excited about is something called Swift Connect, which is essentially a badge on your phone. I had the privilege of moderating a panel at Realcomm back in June, and it was around technology trends in commercial real estate, and I asked the panelists, right, who are all CIOs of commercial real estate firms, landlords and whatnot, what the biggest trend they see coming is, and the feedback pretty unequivocally is that your phone is going to replace your badge. So I think being able to integrate with that, and then doing things like if you think about visitor management, right? How do you make give somebody that's coming in a temporary badge on their phone versus printing out a badge for them. So that will improve security. So I think I have to say it's all about the experience layer these days, and how people experience the workplace, experience the office, experience the building. And I think that comes across a myriad of different areas that could be beneficial to customers.
Yeah. Okay, well that's come through fast. I've got my wildcard question for you, but maybe not that wildcard. If you could outlaw one integration anti-pattern tomorrow, so something you see over and over that you feel kills AI value, what would you ban? And what would you replace it with?
I think point solutions kill the value from AI, especially if the data in the point solution lives in the point solution, because that's where that's only where it will ever go. You'll never be able to get any data out of it, and then the insights that come from that data will never be realized.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess you asked what I should replace it with, and I think a platform strategy would be how I'd think about it. Again, I'm probably a little bit biased.
Okay, brilliant. Well, that was a great whistle-stop tour through your eyes from a workplace point of view. Thank you ever so much, Brett, for your time. So really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. I really appreciate it.
So that was Brett Fisher from ServiceNow on building ops in a platform world. 4 takeaways stood out for me. 1, the platform that has the data wins. Standardizing formats is more valuable than adding yet another tool. 2, context is king. Location, people, assets, schedules, and events must be connected before AI can deliver real insights. The 3rd, ownership matters. Platform success comes when IT and workplace teams co-own governance and value delivery. And then the 4th point, prove value fast. Start with integrations that improve employee experience and give the CFO measurable ROI in 90 days. If your building tech stack is still siloed, pick a platform strategy, commit to it, and keep the context intact. Thanks for listening. Short episodes, sharp insights, no filler. Catch you next time. You've been listening to the Climate Gap Quick Cuts. If you're building in climate tech, subscribe to hear more from the people making it happen.